Oh, yeah. It's my fault.
Classic.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's the way she rolls. Huh?
Are you hearing me, Doug?
Yes, I am. Took me a second to get to the mute button.
Perfect. Okay, my name's Doug Beckett. I'm with the Electric Vehicle Association and the Energy Transition Group. And tonight we have a sales specialist from Wood Wheaton dealership in town. And Denim is going to go over the various electric vehicles he's able to sell from his dealership. About a month, 2 months ago, I went around to dealership in Prince George just to see what electric vehicles were on site. And Wood Wheaton had the biggest selection of makes and models. And in all my time of driving electric vehicles and chatting with dealerships, Denim stands out being the most knowledgeable and enthusiastic sales product representative I've ever come across. And on that basis, I figured it was well worthwhile bringing Denim in to provide his expertise. We as a group are product agnostic, so don't take this as an endorsement of only GM, Chevy, Cadillac products. It is electric vehicles, and the insights we gain here will give us a good understanding of where electric vehicles are at and where they're going. So take it away.
So yeah, my name is Denim Morrison. I do work at Wood Wheaton as a sales representative. I will be going a little over more than just the products we sell as well, as EVs as a whole, and where they were and where they're going to be, as well as market trends and whatnot, and kind of how the shape of things are. Oh, now we're having technical difficulties. There we go. Okay, so this is what we're going to be covering right now, which will be an introduction to electric vehicles, the history, evolution of EVs, battery innovation, types of EVs out there, battery versus hydrogen, emissions and carbon debt, benefits and challenges, market trends, the return of legends, EVs in every segment, infrastructure, and case studies and success stories, as well as a conclusion. So EVs actually have a long history. They've been around for about 150 years, starting in the mid 1800s. The story of the EV is actually quite, it's full of wonder, innovation, corporate espionage, and activism. electric vehicles, EV actually predates combustion engines. There was a point in the early 1900s when EVs actually made up 40% of all vehicles on the road. And that includes horse and buggy. The first true EV all good. The first true EV appeared in 1880, and that was Andre Flocken's Electrowagen. Then in the early 1900s, Detroit Electric, Columbia Electric, and many others picked up the electric vehicle as an answer to the horseless carriage. Now, combustion engines at the time were crank driven, and you kind of had to be a tough mother to crank that over. So they weren't very popular with everybody. But also in that same decade, Henry Ford had introduced the electric starter, so doing away with that and industrializing the production of internal combustion engines. Now, back then, an EV cost a small fortune and was hand assembled, and that was about $3,500. Where Henry could do that for about half the price. So EVs eventually kind of fell out of favor and then disappeared for about 30 years without any recourse at all. They popped up briefly again in the 60s with a concept car by Henny called the Kilowatt. But that was about it until the 1990s. This one, however, that's the big boy. General Motors Electric EV1. Now, in the 90s, LA was going through massive smog attacks. They had 5 Class 1 smog attacks in the span of the same year, which was wild. So California had introduced this clean air bill to try to get, automotive manufacturers on board with the zero emissions. And General Motors answered that with the EV1. This was a fantastic little car. It ran on lead acid batteries, got about 100 kilometers of range. It was relatively inexpensive, and a few movie stars actually drove them. They made about 1,100 of them. Now, within the first 2 years of the EV1 being on the streets, General Motors, for some reason, wouldn't let you buy them outright and would only let you lease them. Now, there was some corporate espionage going on behind the scenes with the oil and gas companies, namely Shell and Mobil from Chevron. And they started taking out ads in the newspapers and on the news and the radio, making a smear campaign because they thought that this was a genuine threat to their business. Other manufacturers were also on board with the smear campaign, including General Motors, which for some reason they had decided that the EV won because EVs don't require a whole lot of maintenance. They were going to lose millions upon millions of dollars in the service industry and parts. I mean, they're kind of right, but at the end of everyone's leases, General Motors collected all these vehicles and took them out to their proving grounds and crushed them so no one could have them. There is exactly 40 surviving, and they're all in museums. You also had President Bush pushing the hydrogen cars, which didn't really go anywhere. But in the 2010s, Tesla came out with the Roadster and eventually their production car, which was the Model S. Model S is an influential car in the EV scape. That basically made EVs cool. They didn't have to be a little commuter car. They could be anything. And in this case was a performance sedan. They could go 0 to 60 miles an hour in 3 seconds. Now, here we are in the modern day. And in 2020, General Motors began work on developing a modular battery system that could retroactively work with a new battery technology as it progressed over the years. That system was called Ultium. And this is what every General Motors electric vehicle uses currently. So what you're seeing here is battery pouches in cells, and each one of those cells is packed into a frame. And they are either stacked horizontally or vertically. The horizontal stacked ones are the are the bigger EVs. So you're looking at the trucks, large SUVs like the Hummer and the Silverado, and the vertical stacked ones are in your smaller EVs like the Blazer EV, the Equinox EV, the Lyric, etc. Any questions so far? Yes.
The
Henry Ford had taken that, however, and put it into his production vehicle.
but the first one was a Cadillac Model 3.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is correct. So the types of EVs we have out currently out in the world, not necessarily General Motors ones, but we have battery electric vehicles, which is what everyone, I'm assuming here, drives. Plug-in electric hybrid vehicles, hybrid, and fuel cell electric vehicles. Battery electric vehicles, plug-in hybrids, and hybrids are the most popular types of EVs on the market currently. Battery electric and fuel cell electric vehicles, we're in a market demand war, especially during the early 2000s. And the battery electric one based simply on simplicity, cost efficiency for consumers, and ease of production. Despite Toyota still believing in the Toyota or in the hydrogen fuel cell, and are still currently trying to make a hydrogen fuel cell vehicle. despite the many complications that comes with hydrogen. So to make hydrogen, you need to use electrolysis. To make 1 kilogram of hydrogen, you need 50 to 55 kilowatt hours to make 1 kilogram of hydrogen. Yes, hydrogen is the most abundant element in the universe, but it does not occur on Earth in its natural state. 1 kilogram of hydrogen can propel a fuel cell EV for about 115 kilometers, while a battery electric vehicle generally can travel 115 kilometers using about 27 kilowatt hours. So less than half. Hydrogen costs about $15 per kilogram. That's before distribution costs. While electricity, as you all are aware, costs about 14 cents per kilowatt hour on average after distribution costs. Hydrogen must be stored at -250 Celsius, causing the hydrogen stations to cost up to $2.7 million to construct a proper station versus the some $70,000 to install a 350 kilowatt hour charger. Toyota still believes that that fuel cell EVs are the future, and I kind of think they're a little cuckoo. Emissions and carbon debt. In truth, EVs are not 100% clean. It takes about 12, they create about 12 metric tons of CO2 to manufacture, opposed to a gas or diesel's carbon emissions whilst being in manufacturing, which is about 7 metric tons. However, the gas continues to create emissions, about 4 tons of carbon emissions per year for every year that it's on the road. An EV does not. Now that's assuming that the grid is clean, which in most cases in Canada, it is indeed. Is renewable electricity via hydro or nuclear. There is 8 coal plants still left in Canada that they are phasing out and are hoping to phase out entirely by 2030. Now, this is kind of where we are in BC. This is the mixed across North America. This is if you were to drive it in states like Minnesota, where all they have is coal as electricity. So in that case, an EV does create a lot of emissions in that regard. But if we're moving away from coal, I mean, hopefully that will come down and we will all be at this. Now, I mean, you can see with the petroleum and diesel that regardless, they're just putting out a ton there. 4 to be exact. Challenges and benefits. Lowering initial costs of purchase, which will come with time. Increasing range but not weight. That's something that they're working on right now. Batteries are heavy And if you're lugging around all that extra weight, it does sap up some of your efficiency. Extreme cold weather, something we have to deal with in Canada regardless. Now, EVs have progressed to the point where at minus 35, you'll lose about 28% of your range, whereas it was over 50. Infrastructure and a clean grid. These are all problems that we are currently working on, and General Motors and BC Hydro, Tesla are all working on these problems. Take up and acceptance seems to be one of the biggest ones. And that's just people being afraid of change. We're in a transitional period. We're going basically from horse and buggy to the automobile. At one time, a horse bettor was going to bet on Henry Ford, invest in Henry Ford's automobile. And all of his colleagues told him that he was crazy because the automobile wasn't going to stay. Well, we all know how that turned out. The benefits of EVs. Very low annual cost of ownership. Almost no maintenance over the lifetime of the vehicle. Every battery electric vehicle is a 5-star rollover rating. Repays its carbon debt in 2 years of ownership. Instant torque gives an exciting drive. Convenience of home charging capability. Reliability and simplicity. Things don't break as often as if they're simple. Any questions so far? Nada. I must be great. Doing good. Market trends. Have to move that little screen there. Last year, global EV sales reached an all-time high of 19.2% of all new passenger vehicles, which is really good. We've been seeing a steady growth of about 3% of ground gains since the end of the pandemic. Cadillac as a brand had its best sales year in history last year, and 38% of that best year ever was EV sales. As of 2026, Cadillac will be a full electric brand and embracing the future. The XT5, 4, 6, CT line, and the Escalade are all going away next year. They will be replaced with the Optic, Vistic, Lyric, and Escalade IQ, as well as them venturing into the ultra luxury segment, which would be the Celestiq. GM has spent $35 billion into R&D for EV-related technologies and is dedicated to a greener future. Mary Barra is doing her damnedest to undo the mistake that they had in the 90s with the EV1. We could have been about 10 years ahead of the game if they hadn't done that. Vehicles that are returning, nameplates that you might be familiar with. Hummer is back as a full electric monster. It is the biggest, most powerful Hummer that has ever existed. It is so big, in fact, you can fit the silhouette, fit an H2 inside the silhouette of it. It is 1.5 inches wider than the original H1. And in the 3X configuration, it has 1,000 horsepower and 1,200 pound-feet of torque. It will go 0 to 60 in 3 seconds, despite it weighing 9,400 pounds. It is an insane vehicle. It is actually a remarkable feat of technology. Escalade is returning and its electric counterpart is out and available for sale currently as the Escalade IQ. It has 750 horsepower and 860 pound-feet of torque. It will still go 0 to 60 in 4 seconds. That's a 7-seater SUV the size of a mountain that is a 1.5 seconds faster than a Corvette C5. Dodge has come to the party too with the Charger Daytona. Although they've done some silly things with it. Now every EV at slow speeds has to play a chime outside so people can hear it. Dodge's answer to that was put a V8 in it, and it plays V8 noises outside. To me, that's kind of a turkey bacon situation. It's okay to just be turkey. It's okay to just be an EV. You don't have to have the V8 noises. And as well as Volkswagen has returned the bus as the ID Buzz. The hippie van is back, my friends. It's actually not a bad looking vehicle in my opinion. It is a bit short ranged. As far as I'm aware, the range on it is about 400 kilometers for the size of the vehicle, with an even shorter range version for Europe, which stops at 300 kilometers. Any questions so far? None. Good. EVs in every segment. We're aware that the compact car was predominantly what everyone was pushing EVs into, with additions like the Bolt and the Leaf, and the Kona, which are pretty much the only ones in the segment currently. The midsize SUV, which is currently the largest of the segments across all brands. This is a Kia EV6 up there. General Motors has the Equinox EV, Blazer EV, Lyric, and Optic, just in that segment. Full-size SUVs. Rivian and General Motors seem to be the only ones that have that currently, with Kia and Hyundai having theirs on the way, as far as I'm aware, with the EV9 and the Ioniq 9. We currently have the Escalade IQ and the Vistic, which are 7-seater SUVs. Performance. How many of you watched Top Gear? Doug in the back, okay. Well, there was an episode on there where a company called Rimac had a concept car that one of the hosts crashed. This was a $15 million car, and it burned for 3 days. Now, they did come out with a Rimac 2 and let the same guy drive it, and he didn't crash it, thankfully. Now, the vehicle I have up there is a concept car as well. That is the Buick Wildcat. That is what they've styled all of their vehicles after, including their EV, which is the Electra E5, which is currently not available in North America. It is available in China right now. It is coming to North America, though. Luxury. Cadillac, BMW, Mercedes, Rolls-Royce, Bentley, they all have their additions to this. Cadillac, I think, is the only one going full electric in that regard. Whereas Mercedes, BMW, Rolls-Royce, Bentley all have a compliance car. Cadillac is 100% on board with the EV. Full and mid-size pickups. The big three in North America have all produced an electric pickup. Ford has the F-150 Lightning. Ram has the Revolution, which is not available for sale yet. And General Motors has actually given us three, being the Hummer pickup for GMC, as well as the Sierra EV and the Silverado EV. Tesla has their Cybertruck. But I don't know if any of you have been watching the news, and those things aren't doing so hot. The Cybertruck has actually had quite a few catastrophic recalls as of late, as all of those steel body panels that are on the outside are in fact glued on. And in the California sun, that makes the urethane that they're attached to, well, brittle. And now you have body parts of your vehicle flying off on the highway and a giant steel boomerang going through people's windshields. Tesla is fortunately for us, but unfortunately for EVs, going down in sales about 70% just this year. That more has to do with Elon Musk than it has to do with their vehicles. General Motors' full-size EV pickups are capable of pulling 12,500 pounds and ranges up to 800 kilometers. And whilst towing max capacity, they can do it for about 450 kilometers. They're about as good as the gas truck. The Ford F-150 Lightning's towing is approximately 7,500 pounds. They do have more payload in their bed at 2,000 pounds. Ours is 1,850. But when they start towing, you lose about 70% of your range. General Motors set out to make a pickup that does pickup things. And my favorite segment, off-road. Currently, there is 2 off-road vehicles in EVs. One being the Rivian pickup, and the other, my favorite, the Hummer EV. The Hummer EV's approach, departure, and breakover angles are all better than a Jeep Wrangler. A Jeep Wrangler has 40 degrees of approach angle in the front. The Hummer has 52. The Jeep Wrangler has 28 degrees breakover. The Hummer has 38. Jeep has 49 degrees departure angle. Hummer has 52. Now, General Motors is coming out with a pickup that is supposed to be able to pull 20,000 pounds in the work segment. When that's to arrive, I'm not sure. I'm not privy to that information, unfortunately. Some interesting things I found out about off-roading in EVs. Because you're moving at such a much slower speed, you're actually using quite a bit less electricity. So off-road, the Hummer can actually gain another 100 kilometers of range. So they're actually thriving off-road. Much like in the city, the only thing that EVs don't seem to like is the highway. But they're still doing it just fine. They get the most range in town, on hills, and off-road. And one day I will own one of those Hummers. I'll probably have to wait for it to depreciate, and it'll be a used model, but. Infrastructure. This is just central BC. Currently, there are 5,300 DC fast chargers across British Columbia. The BC government has pledged $30 million to get that number to 10,000 by 2030. All of this is great. However, it is likely that the current grid will be taxed heavily if everyone was to switch to EV tomorrow. We are looking for more efficient and productive ways to produce electricity. One nuclear power plant can provide as much electricity as 6 Site C dams. And the only byproduct is steam. Nuclear is very, very safe as of current. Just don't build it on a fault line. A good option they could do with all of these decommissioned coal plants would be to convert them to nuclear, which is creating jobs and not losing any. So these are just some things that I've found across the interweb. There's a guy on YouTube right now with a Bolt EV that has over 300,000 miles, or about 484,800 kilometers. And other than tires, the only replacement he's made is a wheel bearing. Just as a testament to how durable EVs actually are. And to circle back, simplicity doesn't break as often. There's about 200 less moving parts in an EV versus an internal combustion engine.
Any sense of what the state of health of the battery is at that?
Yeah. Right there. So what we noticed over the course of 20,000 kilometers or miles for the Bolt EV, anyway, was that the batteries did degrade, they do. But they seem to be all across every manufacturer kind of doing the same thing. They lose about, I think it's like over the course of 80,000 miles would lose 20%. And then it plateaus and doesn't lose any more. Those Teslas from the early 2010s have lost about 25% of their range, but have plateaued. The degradation has seemed to have stopped. And that seems to be the case across all manufacturers, including the Nissan Leaf. Any questions? Yes.
I'm more into electronics. 'Cause
Mhm.
on the industrial side, because all this is, on the industrial side, I'm dealing with inverters.
Yep.
Which is what we have here.
Yep.
You got a DC battery converting to AC,
Yep.
right? You have a VFD, variable frequency drive, which
Yep.
is the variable speed driver of the motors
Yep.
with AC motor, right?
Yep.
Components inside those have things, various electronic components, but the most problematic one are the capacitors. They have a shelf life, whether you use them or not,
Yep.
they have a shelf life. So I'm wondering now, is it the batteries are gonna keep going? I'm wondering now if my inverters or VFDs are gonna start dying off. And then those aren't gonna be cheap to fix either, right?
As of current for EV, like modern EVs, say like just starting in the 2010s, early 2010s, that hasn't been an issue or the case as of current. If that becomes a problem in the future, I'm uncertain.
Perfect, chime in on that.
Yeah.
I know a little more about VFD too. So with a VFD, you're talking about use cases. Use case of a VFD is on almost all the time, right? So that's tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of hours. When you're talking about a car, it's sitting for about 90% of its, but it's not unused like you would have if you had a VFD sitting on a shelf, which is where you have the problems with capacitors. They don't get used, they'll wear out quicker, right? So if within a VFD in a plant, those things are operating all the time. And it makes sense that they would, give it 5-10 years, you have to replace the VFD. But that's how many hours, right? You're not running your car for 8 hours continuously. Yeah, right. So it's kind of like that. So yeah.
Well, there you go. That would explain why they haven't been a problem. General Motors' batteries as of current are tested to 200,000 charges without actually seeing any degradation. Major degradation, rather. In fact, the batteries will probably outlive the running gear in your vehicle. General Motors currently offers an 8-year warranty or 160,000 kilometer warranty on just the batteries and the electrical running components. So your electric motors, inverters, anything like that. In conclusion, General Motors is dedicated to making a zero emissions future and currently is making the largest variety of different EV models of any manufacturer, and to atone for the tragedy of the EV1 in the 90s. EVs may not be entirely clean, but they are certainly much better than their ICE counterparts. EVs are the best shot we have at slowing down the rapid march of climate change. They are just as good as their ICE counterparts, and in some cases, better. EVs have been here before the internal combustion engine, and they will be here long after the last cylinder coughs its last breath. Now go touch some grass, you nerds. And that's me.
I
Any
have two,
questions?
I have two questions.
Sure.
Question one is, okay, I drive a Bolt EUV. I love
Yep.
the car. Fantastic car, best vehicle I've ever had for fun, and haven't had to touch it for 3 years,
I-
almost 3 years now. So great
I
car,
also own a Bolt EUV.
and just love it. Anyways, aside from that, I'm just wondering, do you have any inside scoop on the new Bolt, when it's coming and what it might be like?
Yeah. So in 2026, we're supposed to see them in the spring. Funny enough, the Cadillac XT4 plant is currently being retooled to make the Bolt.
And the rumor is that's going to be sort of more like the EUV. I don't know how similar it's going to be to
Yeah,
the old
so
Bolt, but
Yeah, they're using the EUV platform. They are changing the battery chemistry to from a lithium ion to a lithium iron phosphate, which is just cost effective and durable. As far as stylistically, they're kind of giving the front end of them the same treatment as the Equinox EV. So you'll have that light bar across the front that connects with the bow tie.
awesome. Not sure. I'm not sure I'd make the switch because I love this one so much, but who knows? Faster
Well, I
charging,
mean-
I presume too.
I mean, your Bolt's gonna get, as we've seen, 300,000 miles. So I mean, why change?
Yeah, for sure. Okay, my second question, which maybe
Yeah.
you can tell me if it's putting you on the spot too much, but
Yeah.
you're a salesperson, so I'm just
I am.
curious. I'm just sort of curious when you have people come into your dealership, and you must get a lot of the thrown at you, a lot of the misinformation that is barraged out there about EVs. I'm just
Yes.
wondering, how do you deal with that? Like, obviously, you don't want to get in an argument with a potential customer, but I'm just curious how you deal with that.
I mean, I've heard some pretty outlandish things. I mean, at one point there was I don't know. I push EVs wherever I can, like it just as an option, opposing the gas. Like, as far as I'm concerned, like for selling them, EVs is an electric power plant is just another powertrain. Like, I'm not politicizing it particularly, but I had a lady one time when I suggested, have you considered an EV? She went, no, those are bad for your brain. It's gonna, like, the microwaves. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Yet she was standing there with on her cell phone with her grandchild. And I'm like, okay, you can't please everybody. But what I've found just selling EVs is knowing more about them than the person you're selling to is going to be a key factor, because there is so much sludge out there on social media that is based on rumor and I mean, some of it is true and some of it's not, but it's like 10-year-old information or older. And some of that's just lingering thoughts from the smear campaign in the 90s, which was very effective. They did their job. They did a lot of damage to the EV's reputation.
Yeah, I've noticed over, let's say, roughly the last 4 years, at our dealerships here, I won't name them, that and mostly I've dealt with the GM dealership because that's where I bought the Bolt. And
Yep.
I've noticed a big shift there. I like 4 years ago when they first came out with the EV and that, and we went in and I said, oh, you got any of these? And it was like, well, why would you want one of those? And literally from a salesperson.
Yeah.
But now they've just gone 180. Well, I mean, they still want to sell cars, and they're still mostly selling gas
Oh, I
cars,
mean,
obviously.
Yeah,
but the
ultimately,
attitude
you
is,
still want to sell cars.
yeah, but the attitude is towards EVs has just drastically changed, and they're promoting, putting on little events like they used I'm not sure if it was the Hummer or the Silverado to power a little music day up on the local ski hill.
Yeah,
all
so,
powered,
yeah.
things like that. So they've definitely come, and I don't know if that's a corporate thing or a local dealership thing, but
That's local
Yeah.
dealership. So
Yeah.
yeah, we did use a Silverado EV to power a stage at one point. The Silverado and Sierra EV both have a RV style 240 outlet in the back, in the bed. So you can actually run your whole house off of it for about 5 days.
yeah. So
With
my
power.
point was just that I've definitely seen I've been in there for a couple months now, but definite shift in sort of how they're presenting the EV option stuff. Anyway, I won't take any more of your time. Thank you.
Do you know who got them on that track?
I don't know, maybe you.
Yeah, it was me. And now we've got like five employees all driving EVs, not including myself.
Hmm.
So I did my job.
There you go.
Those battery cells are completely waterproof. You won't have any problems.
Up to the door handles.
It's supposed to be able to ford, I think it's 2.5 feet of water. The Hummer is much the same.
And what do I hook my winch up to pull myself out of the creek?
But probably the fuse box would be my guess.
Well, can you do that on your EV?
Yeah.
Like usually I just take and clamp it onto the battery and
Your truck still has a 12-volt battery.
I can just snap onto
Yeah.
that.
The purpose of the 12-volt battery in your EV, okay. So this guy just bought a Sierra EV Denali today and is learning.
I want to drive it across the creek.
Yeah. He wants to drive his Denali pickup through the creek, but
Well,
okay.
I'm jealous.
Yeah. But yeah, you can access the 12-volt battery just to,
Just clamp onto it, no problem.
that's right. The purpose of the 12-volt in your EV is to run the gauge cluster generally, and that's pretty much it.
I'm not going to hurt anything when I
No.
snap on.
No, you're fine. I mean, I'd look for a tow, I'd probably bring your tow hook with you. I don't think
You're not supposed to tow those.
you can tow them.
My Google said you don't tow your EV. Not true.
No, you can tow your EV. Just don't, I like on the front of the Denali, there's no recovery hooks
This week.
this week. Somebody's gonna have fun with a Sawzall is what's gonna happen. But they do have a tow hook in the front for like a tow pin that you could access and pull yourself out with a winch. In that case, there is an AT4 variant coming as well, which will be your off-road version of that truck.
The Google thing about towing might have been more the long distance towing of a tow truck. Because most EVs,
Yeah.
they flatbed them. They don't tow
Generally
them with the
speaking,
wheels. And that probably is the regenerative braking is part of the issue. You
Yes.
might
Yeah, if you're just pulling it out of the creek
on mine.
dumped her into and got a little over your head, yeah, the toe pin would be the best option to get that out.
So
What's that, sorry? I mean, you can still do the same thing. It's still a truck. Yeah, so the only thing that you're going to be worried about with going across a body of water like that is your instrument clusters. That's pretty much the only thing that you can hurt. Yeah. Because everything else is hermetically sealed.
So Jeanette online has a question. I suspect you won't be able to answer, but we'll give it a try. How did they charge the very first EVs, such as the 1888, the 1906, and then the 1961?
So They charge those actually via trickle charger. They came with example with like the Detroit Electric. They did come with their own trickle charger for their home.
It,
Yeah. That's right.
sorry, say that incorrectly.
I was saying they used mercury diodes at the time because semiconductor diodes didn't exist to take AC if they had AC power to DC.
And in the EV newsletter, I included a picture from early 1900s of a very long extension cord coming out of a wooden shack and hooked up to an electric vehicle. 1961, do you know how they may have done it then?
1961, so they actually didn't have a production EV. They had a concept vehicle. Several companies came to the Detroit Auto Show with a concept vehicle as activism for climate change. It was starting to ramp there and pollution and whatnot, but nothing really ever kind of gained traction, and nothing ever came of it really. The 90s is the next time you really see a pivotal moment in EV history.
All right, so this is the question that kind of goes back to when you mentioned about Buick. Because I haven't heard a whole lot about Buick. Is it
Probably
they-
in general.
in general? Yeah, because they seem to kind of die down on new models and stuff like that in the North American market. But I
Yep.
know in China,
They are super popular
are-
in China, yes.
they are their kind of namesake brand. Do you think it'll be kind of them taking the actual Chinese built Buicks and just like importing them to North America?
They're already doing that.
I know they're doing it with the what is it, Envision or something.
The Envision is currently, so the Envision
Yeah.
is currently made in China.
Yeah.
The Buick Encore GX, Invista, and I believe the Enclave are all made in South Korea as of current and are sold to the into the Chinese market.
Yeah.
But that same plant that makes the Envision makes the Electra as well.
Right.
Which is strangely enough looks oddly like an Envision, but without a grill in the front.
So have you heard anything about future Buick models at all, or is it kind of like
As of current, we are in the current cycle, like the beginning of the current cycle of refreshment in Buick. So they've got all of their models out currently for the gas side. And as far as I know, the Electra E5 is supposed to hit North America in 2026.
okay? Thank you.
Do you know what extent GM is in China? What's going on there? Was made aware of the Wulin Mini,
Yeah.
which I understand General Motors partnered with two Chinese
They did.
manufacturers. And in three years of production, they sold more Wulin Minis alone than Canada has electric vehicles of all makes
Yeah.
and models of all time.
Well, I mean, you gotta keep in mind, China also has, over 1 billion people versus our 40 million, right? So the market's a bit bigger there too. So, but Buick as a brand over there is massive. Whereas in North America, they don't sell super well right now. We've got kind of this Buick, well, they've been pushing against it really hard, but they've got this kind of old man car reputation. Despite them like making the front ends of the vehicles very sharky and sporty and aggressive, but it's tough to sell them with that stigma, I guess. So they've actually kind of even backed off on advertisement and everything on them for some reason. I guess it just wasn't as lucrative over here. Yep.
Another question back here.
So it's a general one. The So you said the Sierra can power your house. I know the Lightnings, that was before, it's
Yep.
like right off the hop. They said, we're gonna sell you even the charger so you can
Yep.
wire it in, it's ready to go
Yep.
power your house, right? GM didn't quite do that initially. But I mean, how many vehicles out there are ready to are set up, ready to go to plug into a house to charge a house or to power a house during a blackout?
As of current, as for the General Motors side, the Sierra and the Silverado are currently doing that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Ford Lightnings.
The Ford
And
Lightning.
then,
yeah.
no, so none of the Korean ones do it yet, as far as I know.
Not as far as China has BYD. They're one of the largest manufacturers of
Yeah.
EVs in the world right now. And as far as I know, they don't have any of that capability, but that could be something coming down the pipeline for them. I don't sell to them, so I don't know what their technologies are in that currently. but-
To me, it gets too faceted. One is,
Mhm.
you know, we just went through a big power outage in Prince George and it would have been nice, you know, instead of running a generator.
Yes,
Left the car plugged in.
That's
and there
right.
we go, right?
Yep.
And then, but the other one is that if you had everyone's cars plugged in and the power went out,
Mhm.
the whole grid could be powered up by all the cars. Plugged
that's
in,
right.
Right? But you need to have smart meters and there's a little more technology
Yep.
involved with it, but
Yeah, I mean,
you know, they gotta build the car ready to go to feed it out and
Yep.
protect itself from overcurrents, right? So.
that's right. I mean, that technology is starting to bleed over into the other models for General Motors, as far as I know. General Motors is actually developing they call it GM Home, which is an electrical storage facility kind of thing, like it's a home battery kind of idea, where you can actually store electricity from either your grid, or if you have solar or anything like that, and you can sell back to the grid, or you can plug your vehicle into that stored electricity as well.
Yeah, the future is exciting.
It is.
Any other questions online? And anything else in the room? Oh, we
Yep.
got one in the room.
Of the BC building code changing for new housing?
It already
to
has.
that? Oh, okay.
So anyone that builds a new house has to have a 240 NEMA either on the outside of the house or in the garage. That is part of new building code. Yes.
I will mention one thing about the NEMA plugs.
Mhm.
People probably heard of garage fires with
Yep.
EVs in it. Speculation is that a lot of those fires are not actually the EV, but it's the electrical plug
Yep.
that's starting it. So anyone out there who's plugging in their EV and charging at 40 amps on a 50 amp plug that looks like a dryer outlet,
Mhm.
you may want to buy the more industrial one, or you may want to lower your current for charging if you have that capability, because they're not really meant for that continuous current and the plugging in and out. And a lot of people probably just wouldn't recognize that as a risk. And I think even the industry is coming to terms with that product is not suitable for that
Right.
intended purpose.
So another thing that General Motors has been doing for that, they have a wall charger that they do sell that's under the Ultium line. That wall charger is able to be wired directly into your breaker box. Now, if you have a NEMA plug and you've done it plugged it in that way, it'll give you about 11.5 kilowatts per hour. Whereas if you hardwire it into your system, you can get 19.5. So you can actually charge up most of even like the big EVs in
And
6 hours.
the power going through the wires to the charger is consistent and for a long time. And the wiring in older buildings, they might be rated for that level of power,
Right.
but the rating didn't expect that power level to be as consistent and as long. So there is the risk of fires there. So if you're in an older building, you probably want to set your charger at a lower level than what the wiring supposedly can take, just to reduce the risks of fires
Yeah.
and to reduce the cost of costly upgrades to your electrical.
It's a sales question now.
Sure, yeah.
So the ultimate platform
The
is
Ultium
GM,
platform, yeah.
but I know they're using it in other vehicles like Honda. They just announced that they're
the
delaying
Prologue,
the
yeah.
battery. So the Passport is as an EV, which is based on the Blazer, right?
Yep. So it's the Prologue is
The
actually,
Prologue,
yes, the Prologue, the Honda Prologue is basically a Blazer EV with a Honda shell on it.
Right.
Like it's funny when you do pop the hood on one and you look at all the components, it's just like GM on everything.
So is there more vehicles out there, like other brands that are running the Ultium?
Yes, so Hyundai and Kia have made a handshake as well with General Motors to employ the Ultium stuff. GM has actually dropped the name Ultium on all of their stuff because it is going into so many different things. So they're actually selling batteries and motors to other manufacturers to put in their vehicles. You can actually buy a General Motors electric motor and battery cell if you wanted to convert one of your gas vehicles into an electric in
They
your
make a
garage.
kit?
Yeah,
I didn't know
it's
that.
like a crate motor. Yeah.
Oh. Okay, now, so the battery currently is an NMC, right? With a few models having LFPs or coming up with LFPs.
The chemistry in the Ultium anyway is a nickel, cobalt, manganese, and aluminum chemistry.
Yeah.
And they are moving to the lithium iron phosphate. Yeah, just for cost effectiveness. And lithium iron phosphate seems to have been proven to be a very durable battery.
And then Toyota's announcing a solid state battery,
Yep.
possibly 27, 28.
Yeah.
Is GM working on that right now?
That is one of the chemistries they are looking at, yes,
All right.
as far as I'm aware. Now, Toyota seems to hate EVs. They've put out one, which is I think the BZ40X.
Yeah, there's a few more.
Yeah.
But they're based on the BZ platform.
Yeah, that's right. It seems to be a bit of, as far as like modern EVs go, have been kind of lackluster, like charging speed as an example and range. They've paired with Subaru and took that BZ platform and just stuck a Subaru badge on it and called it the Solterra. Those are just compliance vehicles. Toyota, the head of Toyota right now, which is the grandson of the original Toyota, is doing his damnedest to make hydrogen a thing. It's not a thing, and they need to stop.
Not for the daily drivers.
No, so
heavy
there's
trucking, yes, but not for the daily drivers.
just to put in perspective, like there are 5 hydrogen stations in all of Canada. 4 of them are in Vancouver.
Right.
That's it. And the reason that there's only 5 is because each one of them costs $2.7 million US to put in. Because you have to store the hydrogen at negative 250 Celsius. That's, and a storage facility that's capable of doing that is not cheap.
So basically saying for EV platforms, there's really 3 then. You've got the BZ, which is Toyota,
The Toyota Solterra. Yeah.
And with the Subaru. Then you've got German one, so the German Volkswagen have their own.
Yep.
And then GM and Forza 4.
Well, and Tesla has their own.
And
too.
Tesla,
Yeah.
I forget, but everyone forgets about Tesla.
Well, yeah, I mean.
And Rivian, I think, is their own as well.
Yeah, so somebody
Rivian,
that was at the head of Tesla should have just stuck to making electric cars and just shut his goddamn mouth. So
All right.
I think he's lost $200 billion in revenue just this year.
Well,
Network.
Net worth? Yeah.
Yeah, really network.
Woof.
Yeah, but profits have dropped 7%.
Yes, 70% of all profits have dropped. Sales across the board for Tesla is down 70%. In Europe?
Europe, that is down 30%. China, they're down, I think this week, or I think April, we were down 6%, but the whole entire market went up 34%. So they're losing market share. I think this past week they had less than or around 5% Chinese EV market share. So they're a drop in the bucket of what they used to be. And then, yeah, and in the United States, they're kind of flat, but they just came out with their Model Y refresh, so you don't know how sustainable that number is. But in Europe, it's 50% to 75% drop.
Right.
Different countries.
So I have a Nissan Leaf out in the parking lot by the charging station. Sounds like there's a brand new electric pickup truck.
I've
Was-
also brought a Denali EV as well.
So-
Although I've parked out in the back. I'm not sure where you wanted me to park.
Okay,
but
well,
I'll
we,
move it.
we can maybe try to circulate around or have them move over to where the charging stations are across from the medical building. And if we want to move the discussion out there and see some vehicles, and anybody else with an EV, shift it over. Perfect. You got your converted? Whoa. Very good. And it doesn't have the GM drop in though.
No.
Oh.
What's that? Oh, that's cool.
Okay, so if you can stop the recording and call it a night. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
It doesn't matter. My wife drives her vehicle